I'm Dr. Michael Latola.
And I'm Megan Strong.
Are you getting annoyed by patients giving their kids $10 for a baby tooth? Well, I've got a dad who's really going to anger you.
And if you've ever been stuck in a situation about what to do when your friends got broccoli in their teeth, Colgate has a cyber solution for you.
And today's part 2 of our interview with Bruce Willis, Michael Chiklis, and Kevin Spacey. That and more on today's Chairside Live. Hey now, welcome to Chairside Live, episode the one after 68 and the one before 70. Megan, how are you today?
Why did you say it like that?
I don't trust you.
Oh, me.
I've seen where your mind has a tendency to go.
Wow.
Okay. I know on the outside you're church-going, you're sweet, everybody loves you, but we know what really happens when the cameras are rolling.
Oh,
it's just,
gosh.
Hello, cowboy, I was worried, that's all. All right, we got a great episode for you today. We've got part 2 of our interview with Dr. Howard Farran and Mr. Gary Takacs, noted practice management authority, or coach as I like to call him. And again, what I love about Gary is that he actually owns a dental practice with a dentist. He's the only consultant I know that does that, so he's got his own little laboratory, if you will, to test things out before he tells dentists around the country that they should implement this on their own as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at part 2 of that interview. Howard mentioned your podcast, Gary.
Yeah.
I've been able to be a guest on there. I think Howard has
Howard
too.
has too. You've both been guests on the
multi-part
show.
guests.
That's right.
Because
both
we're
so
wordy when it comes to.
Let's just say so much useful content.
Exactly.
Let's go with that. That's our story, and we're sticking to it.
Tell me a little bit. We've seen a podcast revolution. Certainly. Yep. In the world at large, terrestrial radio, people getting in and turning that on. I love on demand. I love being able to pause and restart it exactly where I was. I love being able to be on my bike on a 6-hour ride training for Ironman and be able to go through an audiobook, a 6-hour audiobook or a bunch of podcasts. So I can see there's this big sea change taking place in society, and it's happening in dentistry too. Tell me a little bit about the Thriving Dentist podcast.
Well, I'm not embarrassed to say that about 2 years ago, I didn't know what a podcast was. Despite being an avowed geek, I don't mind using that term. Steve Jobs made it fashionable to be nerdy and to be geeky. But I've been a geek since I was a kid, and just a bigger version of that now. But 2 years ago, I didn't know what a podcast was, but I discovered those. They're essentially an online radio show that's accessible anytime, anywhere, primarily from iTunes, but from other sources as well. And I started to listen to it when I work out, when I'm at the gym, when I'm driving. And it was a way to get to multitask and to get education when I was doing something else that I needed to do. And I started to look around, and I started looking in dentistry. I said, wow, what if there's anything like this in dentistry? And I found some podcasts. I was surprised, but I found some. But they weren't very consistent. So, someone would come out with an episode and then maybe, 4 months later come out with another one. But it wasn't very consistent. So I said, I think there might be a need for this. So I created the Thriving Dentist Show. I decided that if I was going to be serious about it, I'd publish every Wednesday, have some discipline and some structure to it, would publish it every Wednesday, would put it up on iTunes, and I'd use an interview format. So the standard format is I interview someone like Howard, someone like Michael, and we talk about just whatever it is that's exciting to us today in dentistry. Put it up on iTunes, and I thought, well, we might get some listeners here in the U.S. I've spoken at most dental meetings in the U.S., and I thought, well, we might get some listeners. What surprised me, and I'm still humbled by it and still very surprised, is that about 5 weeks after launching it, it went viral internationally. And today it's in 105 countries. To amplify a point you made, Howard, I get multiple emails every week from a dentist, typically in a third world country, that'll write to me and say, Gary, I'm here in Malawi, and I listen to your podcast, and we don't have access to this kind of information. I normally have to go to South Africa or go to London to get any kind of dental education. But I'm able to, every Wednesday, this gets fed into my phone. And thank you for doing this. And frankly, it's been very heartwarming. And I'll echo a comment that you made, Howard, is one of the things, I love a lot of things about DentalTown. I love your vision for it. But one of the things I really love about DentalTown is the way you provided a forum for dentists to connect with each other. I can't tell you how many times in the past, pre-DT, PDT? So pre-DentalTown, where clients have said to me in candor, at dinner, where they've said that, they love their profession, but there's times where they feel like they're an island. Where they, and the traditional forums for dentists to get together, let's just say they're sometimes lacking. the traditional dental society forums, the traditional, organized dental forums, sometimes that's not the best forum to have open, honest communication with your colleagues.
Yeah.
And Dennis would tell me that
it's changing a little bit with the advent of corporate dentistry, and we see groups like Pacific and Heartland where you've got 6 or 7 dentists together, but Howard and I grew up in the era of the solo practitioner, and everybody was an island, and that to this day when dentists come and take a tour through the lab, there's nothing they enjoy more than looking at other dentists' impression. It's almost like porn. They're just looking at it going, oh my, especially if it's a dentist they recognize, a guy down the street.
And I just say one more thing to the dentist posting cases on DentalTown is that, I know how the Americans love to, the most complicated cases, the sinus lip, the implant, they want to show off their hardest cases. But you know what? The 1.5 million dentists in Asia, Africa, and Latin America want to see? A simple filling, a simple crown. I wish more dentists would take more times to photo document the simple stuff. Plus, we have 5,000 students in America that are registered on DentalTown. We see their deals.
Well, now you're speaking to my heart, because here at Glidewell, we're the biggest lab in the country, and we worked with 40,000 dentists last month, if you can believe that. 40,000 different dentists sent at least one thing here to the lab. And the amazing thing is, if you just look at Crown and Bridge, for example, 76% of the cases that came in were single unit crowns. And then another 11% were 2 units. So it's like 87% of what comes into the biggest lab in America is 1 and 2 unit crowns. And so that's all we teach, because dentists need to get better at that.
And when I'm in American dental schools or dental offices in Nepal or China or India, they say, a CEREC machine doesn't apply to me. CBCT doesn't apply to me. Half of the stuff you guys talk about doesn't apply to me, but could... I wish there were more cases. Like nobody will show how to do an amalgam.
Right.
I mean, it's more popular to just come out of the closet and say, I am a drug addict in Hollywood, than to say, here, I'm going to show you how.
Get that drop, James, by the way, would you? That's going to be my new ringtone. The Howard Farran ringtone.
I mean, dentists are, they're so competitive on social media that no one just wants to show a DO amalgam on 4.
And it's part of the lecturing thing too. Let me show you what I can do that you can't do, which a lot of times is let me show you what my lab technician can do that
and you know what, and you know what I think the reason I became successful in dentistry is because what I sense in dentistry, and you see it in the institutes too, where the harder something is, the more tribal. Tribes like leaders, and they like lots of customs and rituals. So in dental school, if you said, "Oh, I got a way to do this twice as fast," you're like naughty. Right. But like the first dentist say, like, well, I pour up my own models by hand, and the next dentist say, well, I wax my own dyes.
I grind my own stone.
And then the third dentist says, I have my own beehive. I grow my own wax, pour up my own stone from milled rocks in the garden. And if you can figure out a way that takes 1,000 hours to make a crown, you'll be a god in dentistry.
If you can charge $80,000 for it, and you do 1 a month.
And then when someone comes along to me and just said, dude, can we just do this faster, easier, higher in quality, lower in cost? That's another thing. And when we talk about marketing, no one wants to talk about the 4,000-pound gorilla in the room on marketing. The biggest in every sector is the low-cost leader. Right. Furniture, it's IKEA. Distribution, it's Walmart. Home furniture is Home Depot's. You can read 100 dental marketing articles in all the other throwaway journals, and not one will say, dude, why don't you lower your prices? You got a 3.5-pound brain with a trillion circuits. You've had a year to work on this. You're telling me that in 360, the Earth went all the way around the sun, and you can't lower your price a penny?
There's a famous story about we were coming back from Chicago midwinter on one of Jim's private jets. So we're flying back, and we gave another lab technician, a really high-end lab technician, a ride, and they were talking back and forth, and I overheard this conversation, and Jim was talking to him, and he said, what are you getting for a crown these days? He said, well, on the really high-end aesthetic ones, he said, I'm getting close to $1,000 for those crowns. The lab tech. And Jim goes, "Wow, that's pretty amazing." He said, "We only charge, we charge $99. If we charged $1,000, we wouldn't be able to afford this jet." And that's how you get to the jet, is through the $99 crown, not the $1,000 crown. Now there's cheaper crowns than $99, but in terms of consistency and quality, I don't think you'll find a better
Ford,
deal.
A lot of Americans misunderstand. They think he invented the car. It was invented in Germany. They think he invented. He invented the assembly line, but there were 86 car companies when Ford started. And what he invented was everybody was 4 or 5 guys making one car for the Jim Glidewell guy who owns a jet. And Jim Glidewell, and what Ford said, let's do an assembly line. And if we focus on the masses, we'll have so much money. We'll eat with the classes, because everybody focused on the classes is so poor. They're eating with the masses.
Right.
And what Henry Ford did is he brought a car for the masses. And what I don't understand is like look at implantology. I mean, you still have companies selling the titanium screw for $500. And oral surgeons and periodontists are so obnoxious. They're like, well, I've used them for 20 years. It's like, dude, we just had a financial recession. The world's a tough place.
Right.
There's implants all around the world for $100.
We're angering those same dentists by coming out with those more affordable parts. You haven't seen it.
And their culture is like, well, why should I have to make a cheaper implant?
Right.
Well, I mean, why should I?
Right.
It's like, you're a doctor, and they're your patients, and they're all complaining about your fees.
Right.
And what I continually see is that I'd rather have the lowest price in town than the biggest Facebook page.
Right.
I'd rather have the longest staff than the longest in anything. I mean, if your staff's been there forever, and they're making an outrageous experience, and you got the lowest fees, and you're in the IKEA, Walmart, Southwest Airlines, and I remember the biggest compliment I ever got was at the AACD meeting, where some guy said, "Well, you're
handsome."
No, he didn't say I was handsome. That was Stevie Wonder called me handsome. But anyway, he says, or you could be the low price guy and be the Walmart of dentistry like Howard Farran, and the whole room laughed, and I thought,
and you were in the room?
That's the biggest compliment in the world. Right. The Walmart of dentistry. I mean,
well, that's what Jim always says about this lab. But I always correct him, and I always say we're really the Costco, because we also carry name brand products. So we have our own Kirkland signature crowns, but we also have IPS EMAX, we have Lava. So we carry all the name brands, but then we also have our own in-house brand, which to a lot of eyes and ears seems just as good as the name brands, which I associate more with Costco than Walmart. But Gary, I'm wondering if you go into, or the typical dentist who's interested in getting some coaching for you, and he brings you into the office and you guys sit down and talk. What's the, I know a lot of dentists want to focus on skills and doing things, better and being able to charge more kind of things. But what do you see that's holding most dentists back from having that kind of successful practice that they have in their mind, of whether it's being able to practice less or being able to take home more or whatever it might be?
Some of this goes back to fundamentals still in practice. And what I find today, and I've been an advocate of systems, and having the right systems in place in the practice, because it's wonderful to have the right people. And I would echo the comment that you made about the importance of having a team and the importance of having continuity among your team and well-trained team members that are there for a long time. Absolutely important. But let's add to that we have systems in place in the practice that allow us to do things consistently to a standard that's measured. And today there's a lot of systems that have evaporated and kind of disappeared, and many practices are systemsless. And I'll explain something that I think is really important today. And if you look at what realms do dentists have to master to succeed in 2013 and beyond? Well, they have to do good dentistry. They have to have clinical excellence. They have to do good dentistry. And if they don't do that, it's a house of cards. Can we agree on that? That at some point that's going to come back and do serviceable, it should last. They have to do good dentistry. Secondly, they have to have some business acumen. Unless they have a silver spoon or have a lottery annuity, they've got to figure out how to make money with this in order to stay open.
Exactly.
They've got to make money. And third, they have got to master the behavioral sciences, the people side of dentistry. On the people side of dentistry, that's an art that has disappeared, from the lexicon. We'll all remember a time, this was early in your practice careers. I've got you guys by a couple years, that's it. I want to emphasize that it's only a couple years. But I remember very early in my career when I was influenced by people like Avram King, people like Omer Reed, people like Will Southam from the group at Cox up in Toronto.
Avram just passed away, right?
Just did recently. And on the clinical side, people like Bob Barkley and Dr. L.D. Pankey. And those leaders understood that there was a person connected to the tooth. There was a person connected to the tooth. And the behavioral sciences are something, and when I talk about, it sounds like voodoo or something, but what I'm talking about is the people side of dentistry: leadership, team building, communication skills, case presentation, how to talk to patients so they become more interested in a comprehensive care, and how they become more interested in dentistry so that they can get healthy. We're moving towards a new era in healthcare. There's a lot of discussion today there's a lot of pessimism around the healthcare system. And I happen to have an optimistic viewpoint on it, and that is that we're moving towards an era, I'd call it the third era of medicine, that has to do with wellness and being healthy. And dentists that'll take that position and will help their patients help solve cavities. Today we have detection tools that can allow us to detect cavities at their earliest stages. And in some cases we can use remineralization techniques to essentially prevent a cavity from developing.
Right.
And how powerful is that?
Right, and I know one of Howard's favorite things that he loves about implants, and I'm about to ask him about this, is that implants and the crown on top of it cannot suffer from recurrent decay. But just to your point of systems, one of my favorite stories about Howard's dad owned multiple Sonic restaurants, which they still have in Arizona and even out here now in California. Had multiple Sonic restaurants and was so into systems and really tried to pattern these restaurants after McDonald's. So much so that he had Howard get a job at McDonald's for the single purpose of stealing their operations manual and bringing it back to his dad. You thief!
Went to Mass every morning, maybe got a job at McDonald's just to throw the manual in the trash can, carry the trash can out, and then get up that night and drive to the trash can. I thought I was spy.
Like James
But
Bond.
I want to add one thing. What you said is spot on about, starting with the Bob Barkley era and the Avern King, the Omar Reed, really get into the people side of it. And I think that's and with healthcare, healthcare, ever since the medicine man, they think that no matter what you do, you just go to the medicine man, he makes a lotion and potion, gives you a pill, and you're all good. That you can eat cheeseburgers for 65 years, and then when you get cancer, you'll see a pill. I think the funniest thing is the depression meds. Everybody I know on depression meds, they skip breakfast, they drink coffee all morning, and then they eat a fast food lunch. Then they come home and drink a six-pack to wind themselves down, but they're depressed, so they take a pill. So really that pill's going to get rid of no breakfast coffee and a six-pack in the afternoon. Really? The pill? And I want to, all health care, whether it's dentistry or heart disease, starts in the kitchen. And you can't exercise more than you can eat, right. And if you can't brush and floss more, then you eat the wrong food. And I want to add that element to MBA, which no one thinks about. MBA, everybody thinks about marketing and return on investment and return on equity, and these are your numbers. But I want to go to the holistic side of it. I see kids that were not born in the United States. Everybody's talking about how much student loan debt these kids are walking. And if you're born in the United States and you have $300,000 student loans, you're in a lot of trouble. But if you're not born in the United States and you have $300,000 student loan, no problem. I'll see kids walk out of UFP with $300,000 in debt. And if they were born in the United States, they have that entitlement mentality. They go buy a Honda Civic, a condo. They go out to eat 3 nights a week. They dress like this. They have iPhones and watches. And they always complain about their student loan payment. But when you look at their monthly payments, their student loan payment is one of the smallest payments they make. Their condo payment's bigger. Their house payment's bigger. But if they were born in Vietnam or Laos or Cambodia or China, basically Southeast Asia, they get out of dental school, they go rent 1,000 square foot, they put in 2 operatories, they live in the back, they don't own a car, they're open 24/7. They say, well, 8 to 5, and we're not very busy because I'm new. But at 5 o'clock, all the people born in America, they all close, and we get a toothache at 7, $2,000 root canal bill and crown. We get another one at 9. I was talking to one Laotian girl in San Francisco a month ago. On a Saturday, she did $17,000 in cash, and the only employee she had back there was her mom.
Right, and she was the only dentist open probably for a 3-mile radius.
In 3 years, they have $300,000 of student loans paid off, gone. And they got $200,000 or $300,000 in the bank, and then they go buy something. But the entitled American, so you want to get financial. Here's what I'll tell the dentist: if you want to get financially healthy and you want to get your numbers in order, the first thing you need to do is cut your living expenses in half. You still see dentists all over. Well, do you buy a CAD cam? No. Then you look at his payments. He's got a stay-at-home wife named Muffy, and the kids are all at college. The dentist paid and put himself through college, but he's putting 3 kids through college who are all down there smoking pot. Muffy's down there blowing $5,000 a month. And it's like, why don't you tell your wife to get a job, your 3 kids to be a man, a self-made man, and I mean, when dentists cut their overhead in half, their stress disappears. Holistically, they go into the office. They don't have to break this big number every day. They're not under the gun. They're not stressed. They don't have to go to a sports bar after work.
Right.
And just cut the overhead. Holistic.
By the way, my grandmother was named Muffy. That's a family name, so I feel like you're talking about me, but I know you're really not. But it's true. Like with the food, I don't want to suck all the joy out of life. But when you look at a dog, you give the dog food to the dog, and the dog eats the food, and the dog doesn't mope about the food, and this isn't what I wanted, and I wanted canned food, and the dog's in good shape and gets exercise. And then you look at humans with these well-developed brains, and that's where everything gets messed up. That's where all of a sudden, not only this entitlement, but I'm going to reward myself because I ran today with this hot fudge sundae. Or I'm going to reward myself by sleeping in and not going to exercise, which in reality is the worst thing you can do. It's not a reward, and it just kind of reinforces that stereotype.
Well, never trust the brain because it's the only organ that named itself.
Exactly. Do you have Howard's got a weight loss story. He's training for Ironman, lost 38 pounds. I lost 65 pounds 5 years ago, and went through a similar kind of transformation to Howard. People were calling the lab and seeing these videos as I was shrinking away and my hair was coming off. They thought I had contracted something and were worried about my life. Do you have any kind of a story like that, or are you one of those normal people, Gary, who doesn't go to extremes like Howard?
No, I don't have quite the same range of extremes that you've had, but this past year I decided it was really time to devote myself to fitness. I'm very fortunate in that I'm married. My wife is very passionate about fitness and wellness and health without being fanatic, but she's a fantastic cook, but always preparing food well. My challenges were on the road. And I think
We've all talked about that.
Strip clubs? I think I hear what you're saying.
The challenges were on the road with meal proportions. And just the I can be very disciplined at home.
Right.
And I decided that I was going to carry the discipline that I had at home on the road, and it's made all the difference in the world. I'm faithful about working out, whether I'm at home or on the road. I have a little trick that I use that I'll share with you and our viewers. Restaurant portions are just out of control in the U.S. I'll usually pull the waiter or waitress aside. I'm at dinner with a client, and I'll say, whatever I order, I want you to bring half of it. And they usually don't understand. It's an interesting discussion. Well, we can't split the charge. You have to pay for it. I said, it's perfectly fine. I'll pay for all of it. But whatever your portion size is, I want you to bring half. Well, do you want the other half in a box? No, I don't want it in a box.
Right.
Just whatever the size is, bring half of it, and that'll be my meal.
Yeah, just say take the other half and give it to someone you hate that needs a heart attack.
Perfect.
Well, you could get it to go and give it to maybe the first homeless person that you see.
There we go.
I don't know, as opposed to just them trashing it or whatever they do with the other half.
But it was really a matter of bringing some discipline that I had at home, to the travels on the road. And knock on wood, it's worked for me, and I sure feel a lot better.
Thank you for that, Dr. D.
Thank the other two bald guys.
Thank you, other two bald guys. Now let's go to a segment we call Viewer Mail. This week's Viewer Mail comes to us from Dr. Marshall Horowitz, and he writes, Dear Dr. D, the last case of the week about the Biotemp guide for post buildups was really ingenious.
I agree.
That is truly a gem.
Thank you.
It is a time saver and also gives a more predictable result.
It does.
That was one smart idea.
Oh, bravo.
Okay. I do have a question about your post selection.
What?
I don't understand why you would choose a post with a non-retentive head like the Reliax post. With that head, the bond between the core material and the post is strictly chemical. With a post like the Parapost Fiberlux, not only is there chemical adhesion between the core and the post, but also substantial mechanical retention because of the undercuts in the post head. I see all upside and no downside. Thoughts, Dr. Horowitz?
My thoughts are, snap! I've been served! He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. You know, here's a picture of what that post that he's talking about looks like. And it's got, it's a post, as you can see, and then it's got grooves in it like that. And then the head of it, there's two little like round spheres at the top with a perfect undercut there. And Marshall, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's going to get some mechanical retention in addition to the chemical bond that we're going to get to the resin using our bonding agents and our buildup material. So I guess the question is, why would 3MSB make a RelyX fiber post that doesn't have a mechanical head on it? You know, the truth is that I just started using those because I believe it was one of the first fiber posts out. We first switched to the zirconia posts, and then they were too stiff. You can imagine a post made out of Bruxer. And then we went to the fiber post, and I think that was the first one. And when you have something that's working, I try to keep my eyes open, but for some reason I missed that Parapost one that you bring up, the fiber or the taper post with that retentive head. And yeah, here at the lab, you know, anytime a manufacturer tells us that, oh, don't worry, you know, the chemical bond between these two materials is going to be enough, we're very skeptical, and we always add some mechanical retention any chance that we can. In fact, with the art glass to metal material that we used to have, you know, years ago, the art glass would come off the metal, and it would have happened a lot more here had we not ignored what the manufacturer said and continued to put mechanical retention on just because we know, as you know, that mechanical retention is always going to be the best. So I think because the first post, the first fiber post that I used did not have a head on it, and because I didn't have buildups falling off the post, although I can remember a few where I took the temporary off, and I think the buildup may have come off, so I should probably amend that statement, but I can't remember exactly what post that was. But just because I was having good luck, I don't think I looked around anymore and saw another one, but I absolutely agree with you. It is all upside and no downside. I can't think of any reason to use a post that does not have that kind of head on it, even if it ends up being, I don't know, too bulky because of where it's positioned, like on the lingual of a maxillary central incisor, so you prep a little of it away, but you know, at least on the facial part, you still have that undercut. So you're absolutely right. Guilty as charged. I am going to throw away all my RelyX posts and order some of the posts from Coltine, the Parapost. I'll probably get the Taper Lux. I like a tapered post a little bit better than their straight fiber Lux that they have as well. So thank you for the suggestion. You are absolutely right, and you just changed my post selection, and I just wanted to tell you, Marshall, that your suggestion about what post to use is truly a gem. It's also a time saver, and it does give a more predictable result. And Marshall, that was one smart idea. And because of that, Megan,
yes,
what do we have for him?
Well, how about this photo? Oh,
that's a nice one.
Yeah, and you know what's
I think he already has one, so I'm glad he gets a different one.
Right, and you know what's interesting about this photo is it kind of looks like... It kind of looks like I maybe said something a little humorous, if you will, and have a little smirk on my face, and you're like, really? And normally it's the other way around.
That's true. That's true.
We'll sign that.
Yeah, I like how you're looking at me there.
Right, okay.
But I didn't see it when it happened, is what I'm saying.
Right, and this...
I'm facing straight ahead.
How about this?
Oh, because he cooked up a great solution for us?
Ho, 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 look at that. So punny. Yep, right here, look at that. So you've got an apron to do all of your cooking and baking. The holidays are coming up. And it's time to get cooking.
You know what? You know Marshall. Yep. Marshall's a little crazy.
Yeah.
Marshall, I want you wearing the apron to see patients, if you don't mind.
Promise?
And it'll keep splatter, blood, saliva, you know, pus, purulent materials, calculus, off your clothing. And at the same time, if you want to barbecue at lunch for the staff as kind of a treat, you just go into the back and wear it so it kind of does double duty.
Okay.
But wear something underneath it, Marshall. Don't get me wrong. I did not say just the apron alone. All right, so we've got an autographed picture and apron heading out to him. That's wonderful.
Sure do.
Got any news for us?
I do. In episode 41 of Chairside Live, which you can go back and relive all that fun on YouTube, iTunes, or chairsidelive.com, we talked about the Tooth Fairy, and now she's made the news again. This time, she's getting help from a dad who created a system that transports lost teeth from their home to the Tooth Fairy. He created the contraption using flexible PVC pipes, a central vacuum, and a Raspberry Pi microcomputer. His kids place a tooth in a capsule and put it in the pipe, which sucks it away. They can even watch an animation on a little computer that tracks the delivery. Then, money from the Tooth Fairy is sent back down the tube from the attic for delivery in the child's room.
Wow.
How cool is that?
I love this dad, and I hate this dad all at the same time. Because he's making us other dads who just stick something under the pillow, not
Right.
look very good. That's a lot of effort. That's a lot of calories burned. That's amazing.
Yeah, and if anybody would like to be a super dad like this dad, you can, or super mom, you can go on, and he actually has instructional videos on YouTube where he teaches you how to make the contraption.
Wow.
I think it's actually, that is so incredible. Where were my parents? Were they making me special contraptions? No. I got a buck under my pillow, which I'm grateful for. Thank you.
I don't know. I don't know if the kids in that family are going to get made fun of at school when they talk about this. I feel like when the kids find out there isn't a tooth fairy, they might resent Dad for exactly how elaborate this whole plan was to deceive
My
them.
whole
as
life
opposed
has
to
been a
just,
lie.
I know, and then you're going to school saying how the tooth fairy does this, and then other kids are going home complaining to their parents.
Right,
And,
that's true. And it's not just the tooth fairy. He's got plans for the Easter Bunny and Santa. So he's going to make some sort of adaptation to it. So he's going to adapt it in some way so that he can send like bigger items down the tube. And so Santa and the Easter Bunny are going to be next, which I think is going to be very interesting.
I'd also resent that if all of my Christmas gifts from my parents had to fit through a 2-inch piece of PVC
Right,
piping. All your gifts would be tiny. It'd be like
a couple
all
bouncy balls.
fun-sized candy bars
Right.
and all Chinese handcuffs and just tiny little things that could go through there and
Yeah.
never any kind
Yeah.
of big gift. But it's pretty amazing he did that. It reminds me of at Home Depot, you see those tubes where they put the thing in, or you're too young, again, to remember this, but you used to go to the bank, and when you go in the drive-through lane, you would put, deposit a check, you put it in the cylinder and close it, put it in there, hit a
Stop
button,
it.
and the door would, and it would shoot it up, and
That's so
it looked
cool.
like it was going to be the future of everything, much
Right.
like on the Jetsons, and it turns out it's the future of nothing. Not even around
Now
anymore.
you can take a picture of your check and deposit it.
Exactly. I wonder what else this dad is going to build. Some very elaborate spy camera to watch when his daughter starts dating or something. I don't know. We'll see. But that was
That
pretty
got weird
interesting.
quick. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes. What do you do when a friend has something stuck in their teeth? Do you just let the broccoli hang there, or do you try to discreetly whisper in their ear? Well, Colgate may have a solution for this tricky situation. You can now send somebody an anonymous tweet that alerts them to the spinach in their teeth. No Twitter, you can send an email. You can even tell them exactly what's in their teeth, from kale to popcorn. Besides saving the person some embarrassment, they will also receive a coupon to save $1 off a Colgate toothbrush.
I'm sure that'll soften the hurt and shame that they're feeling of doing that. So it still seems, though, even though it's anonymous, that like if we're having a conversation and then 2 minutes later you get a tweet or an email, that says you have something in your
Right.
teeth and you just got back from lunch, so you know that it was nobody like earlier in the day
Sure.
who saw it. So I don't know. I know it's supposed to be anonymous, and I like the idea. I like the idea. What do you think? How would you feel if you got?
I'm in the camp of if I've got something in my teeth or a booger hanging out of my nose or something, please tell me.
Ooh,
Don't
okay.
let me be embarrassed.
I apologize then for episode 33.
Okay.
I'm sorry. But my problem is I wish it would, like for example, I fly around a lot doing
Yeah.
lectures and stuff, and because I do almost all my miles on United Airlines, they're nice enough to always upgrade me to first class, and I can't tell you how much periodontal disease there is in first class.
think you've told
I
me
haven't
that
made
before.
I know, and I'll tell you again,
Okay,
but
thanks.
the breadth of a lot of the, and these are business executives,
Sure.
because they're writing up front, horrible, horrible breath, and I never know what to do. I feel like as a dentist I should tell them, but this is a 5-hour plane ride, and I don't want this to be the first thing out of my mouth, and then I don't want to have a conversation about periodontal disease and anaerobic bacteria for the rest of the flight when I'm trying to watch Heat. I think the movie that you kept trying to get us all to watch, which
so
I still
funny.
haven't watched. And so usually what I do is I just wait till baggage claim, and I run up to them and I say, your breath reeks, and then I run away.
Stop it.
But the problem is I'd like to use that app, but this app assumes that you know the person's cell phone number or email address.
That's true.
I would like to be able to just take a picture of the guy next to me who's not paying attention, then enter which orifice stinks,
Yes.
just to let him know,
Okay.
and then be able to forward it and have the Google or something be able to do a face matching thing like on Hawaii Five-0, and then send it to him.
You know what?
While we're in the plane.
Here's the thing. Do you really tell people when their breath stinks?
I feel that as a dentist, if they're in the dental chair, you should, but the way I do it is,
I'm talking out in public in your general... Yeah,
no.
thank
Out in
you.
public I wouldn't, but I would if it was anonymous because I'd like them to know as well. But when somebody's sitting in the chair, and usually I won't tell them, You know, guys will come up to me, patients, and they'll say, my wife or my girlfriend thinks my breath stinks. What do you think? And they'll get ready to exhale on me. I'm like, stop. It's not going to happen. I don't know how much money you have in your wallet, but it's not enough for me to do this. We have a halimeter, this neat little device where you put a straw in your mouth, and it actually measures your bad breath in terms of parts per billion. So now it's not even an opinion, anybody's opinion. It's just scientific data. You're at 180 parts per billion of volatile sulfur compounds, and it's usually somebody who hasn't had their teeth cleaned for years, and they just need to get their perio under control.
Crazy.
So that's cool, but I'd like to be able to, an app, a universal app that I could send to anybody.
Yes.
Dear Megan.
Oh, gosh.
It's supposed to be anonymous. Okay. Now you know. I'm sorry about that. Well, that about wraps it up for this week's edition of Chairside Live. On behalf of myself, Megan, the Chairside Live crew, and everybody here at the lab, I want to thank you for your time and your continued commitment to quality dentistry.
Come back next week and bring a friend. It's not unusual to have broccoli in your teeth. Do-do-do-do.
Well,
now let's go to a segment we call Viewer Mail. Quit mocking me.
I wasn't.
You do it every time.
No, I don't. I do it like every third time. I do it every third time.
Okay, well, last episode you did.
No, mocking you would be all.
I still have to do my Cher impression.
I am a drug addict in Hollywood.